Lord Mayor, public representatives, and everybody here. It's my pleasure, honour, and actually kind of emotional at the moment for this special day for our family. I would like to thank formally the organisations and committees and associations who put so much work into this. The Toker Tidy Downs, Toker Historical Association, Toker Gardens, Toker Community Associations, Ballyfihan 2016 Centenary Committee, who have done so much work over the last number of years in the area of commemorations. I apologise if I've left anybody out. I would like to thank Cork City Council, not only for today, but for their continuing practice of acknowledging our patriots and unsung heroes. For me, this began in 1920 with the council decision of our Lord Mayor Thomas McCurtain when he was murdered, and the plot was made available in St Finbar Cemetery for his burial, the Republican plot, which is not far from here, and now contains the final resting place of 60 men, including Joe Murphy of this parish. Successive counties or councils have continued the practice of acknowledging our patriots. This was exemplified by naming the roads in our areas in Ballyfihan and Toker when they were being developed in the 1950s and 60s. Our recent council members have supported the makings of a film such as The Boy from Powladuff, My Unsung Hero, Joe Murphy, and it's great to see his grandniece here, Sheila, The Man in the Uniform, and the RIC man, O'Donoghue. And now I want to say thanks again to this council for supporting a third film by Maurice Deneen, Elizabeth Scanlon, Catherine Mahon Buckley, and Chris Cullen of Epic Films on the Hegarty of the Laurel story. So thank you very much, Lord Mayor, for allowing this to happen. My first real experience of commemorations was in 1960 when I saw my father John Joe and his men of H Company at the unveiling of a plaque in our neighbour's house, Joe Murphy, on the Powladuff Road. And again in the same year at the unveiling of the plaque at Fairs Cross. And then in 1963, seeing old IRA men at meetings in our home at the Laurels, discussing plans for the unveiling of the monument at St Finbar Cemetery. And now, 60 years later, we're here to honour the memory of two Cumann officers, Nan and Mamie Hegarty, my aunts, for their part in the struggle of independence. I believe it's a fact that for the role of Cumann, we may not have had the result that we do have today, as they were putting their lives in danger on a daily basis. They were moving arms and dispatches around the city, gathering intelligence and identifying spies, which could mean a death sentence in a lot of cases. They were nursing volunteers, raising funds, providing food and shelter, to name just a few roles. And in Nan and Mamie's issue, they were helping John Joe to make tin can bombs. And these cans were being smuggled out of the Cross and Blackwell factory by their Cumann colleagues. They also played a role in the burning of Toker Barracks just up the road here with members of H&G Company. Both sisters then had helped to establish, because they had joined the Cumann at the early stages. They were establishing branches around the city, here in Lehenamore, Ballygarvan and Ballycotton. And yet the role of women seems to have been overlooked or played down in our history. Former President Mary McAleese once said, "We are a vibrant first world country, but we have a third world memory." I hope today's events will go so far to rectify this. I'm going to speak then with the two ladies. Nan went full-time as captain and became treasurer of the Cork District of the Council. She had this with the full backing of her parents, Elizabeth and Patrick. She was not only delivering arms and dispatches around the city, but also to Tipperary brigades, doing this while travelling by train under a local landlord, former British Army officer and prominent Church of Ireland family, the Sarsfields, who lived here in Toker. This family also allowed John Joe and the two sisters to use their property as a further arms dump. And Nan had one particular narrow escape when she was avoiding arrest from the Crossbarry ambush. In Tipperary, she was meeting men like James Leahy, Dan Breen and Jack Maher, who themselves then, when visiting Cork, stayed at the Laurels. The Laurels itself became a hub for Cumann intelligence gathering because John Joe had one of his men, Con Harrington, working at City Hall. Con was in fact the personal assistant and bodyguard to the brigade commanders, Mayors McCurtain and McSweeney, and they're providing a direct link to them. When Sean Hegarty and Tom Crofts became commanding officers, they used the Laurels as a base. Con Harrington later went on to be town clerk, secretary of the bars when they won the county in 1926, and just for Donald Collins here today, they beat Blackrock in the final. And it's great when history does repeat itself. Con and his brother John, who's I know his son is here today, were members of H Company and are from Greenmount originally. Mamie, then we knew was president in 1920, was to have the first Republican wedding when she married John Ford, a fellow volunteer at the Loch Church. Nan, a bridesmaid, and Paddy Ford as best man were all in uniform. And this was just a week after the family's involvement at Farn Barracks raid, so that must have been an interesting week. At the church, it was John Joe's job to arrange his men for armed security in the vicinity, as it was dangerous time, especially while dressed in full uniform. Their cousins Sis Moore and Maud Mitchell, two other local Cumann ladies, arranged for other members to act as scouts. Mamie was procuring arms during the First World War when the army, or British Army and the American Army, were stationed in Cove, when her future husband was the embalmer. So they confiscated dead men's weapons armed at the brigade. What was happening, in fact, was that the casualties in Europe from the Americans were coming back to Cove, were being embalmed, put into uniform with side guns. Those side guns arrived in the Laurels. They never stalled the States. Mamie was also played an important role, again with intelligence, for the capture of the Upnor off the coast of Cork, as she had a very privileged position both in Cove and the fact that she had established Cummins in Ballycotton. This resulted with some of the arms going to the family's dump at the Laurels and some of the Mitchells in Kerry Pike, but mostly to West Cork. Both sisters attended to prisoners in Cork Jail. Like many other Cumann members, they learned first aid early at the expense of the British authorities. These classes were overseen by a Nurse Aylwood, another Cumann member. They were there when Michael Fitzgerald and Joe Murphy died. They helped John Joe when taking Joe's body from there, wrapped in the tricolour, back to the Loch Church, and this only a few months after the wedding. It must be remembered, I think, and the Lord Mayor touched on it earlier, that these were all young women in their early 20s. They all survived both wars, and all three siblings received the Active Service Medal with Bar, which signified that their lives were in danger. It was the practice at the time for a lot of people to have autograph books, and Mamie kept an autograph book. That's now in the care with other artefacts at the museum. And this was signed by many of her comrades and by men who recuperated at the Laurels after coming out of prison or wounded while on the run. Nan entries to her sister's autograph book was, "Wert thou all of thee, I wish, great, glorious and free, first flower of the earth and first gem of the sea." The three final resting places at St. Joseph's on the Torrey Top Road, in the Hegarty, Ford and Fennell family plots. It's always been a tradition of our family to attend Easter and other commemorations, and now thanks to the council we have a very personal venue in an area that was very familiar to both sisters from their time of coming to school here in Toker, crossing fields, these particular fields, and later by bringing arms to the Sarsfields home, also out of Toker, and of course their meetings with the Lehanamore branch of Cumann. So finally, may I thank you all for attending, and hopefully the people of Cork will enjoy this facility now being provided again by the council, and with special thanks to the Parks Department. And all I can do now is just wish everybody a happy Easter, and thank you for coming.